Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, Francis Ngannou says he always wins against Dana White. Michael Bisping gets invited for a grappling contest against GSP. Jamahal Hill vacates his light heavyweight belt, and Daniel Cormier apologizes to Francis Ngannou. Michael Bisping gets invited for a grappling contest against GSP. In one of the most anticipated comebacks, UFC legend Georges St-Pierre recently announced that he is getting back to action. During the UFC's annual International Fight Week celebration, it was announced that GSP would be making his long-awaited return to combat sports, engaging in a no-gi submission and grappling match at the end of the year. As it turns out, the UFC great does not want to be the only one to come out of retirement for this invitational event. He had spoken about the possibility of going against either Khabib Nurmagomedov, Kamaru Usman, or Anderson Silva. But more recently, the opponent he chose is perhaps more fitting due to the history between them. GSP spoke with former middleweight champion Michael Bisping in an episode of Bisping's podcast, extending an invitation to his one-time opponent to also return to action at this grappling event. More than that, he has even offered to help Bisping train for the event, an offer that the Count has said he is considering when discussing it on Twitter. "It'll give me something to train for. At Georges St-Pierre offered to help me train. Would be a pleasure and an honor." Again, he gave his seal of approval on his YouTube channel. But despite being retired for almost half a decade, Georges St-Pierre and Michael Bisping are no strangers to one another, having shared the octagon at UFC 217. After dominating the welterweight division for nearly a decade, GSP returned 4 years removed from his split decision victory against Johnny Hendricks to challenge Bisping for the middleweight title. Rush scored a third-round submission, becoming the fourth fighter in UFC history to hold titles in 2 separate divisions. A month later, St-Pierre vacated the title due to a medical condition. Bisping would go on to compete in one more fight, suffering a first-round knockout against Kelvin Gastelum before retiring from MMA in 2018. But it'd be hard to figure out who is the rustier one of the two until they step on the mats. Francis Ngannou says he always wins against Dana White. Francis Ngannou seems to have made the best choice for his career when he rejected Dana White's offer to continue in the UFC. But since he left the promotion, he got lots of unfriendly remarks from the UFC president, and Ngannou never understood why Dana White would try to bury him on his way out of the promotion, especially since he believes he's done nothing bad against his former employer. Following his exit from the UFC, many accused him of fumbling the bag and also warned him of his downfall. This was spearheaded by the UFC president, and fortunately for Ngannou, he turned the tables by signing deal after deal. Ngannou told SiriusXM,
"He must feel good, but I would say it's something that I'm good. It's a position. It's something that I used to, I used to always prove people wrong. It came to be my special. And then when it comes to Dana, I think I'm all good. For some reason, I always prove Dana White wrong, even when he's on my side. I always prove him wrong every single time. So this is just, as usual, our story."
Ngannou's differences with the UFC chief started in 2018, after he lost back-to-back fights with Stipe Miocic and Derek Lewis. White was furious with Ngannou's lackluster performance against Lewis, claiming that he thought he would be the next big thing. Ngannou would later go on a tear and become UFC heavyweight champion, but it was his forceful exit from the promotion that tore their relationship apart completely. On Tuesday, it was announced that Ngannou will face Fury in a 10-round boxing match on October 28 in Saudi Arabia. The matchup will be contested as a professional bout, with results going on both fighters' records, although Fury's WBC title won't be up for grabs. Ngannou was well aware that White had set his sights on having Fury come over to the UFC to face Jon Jones in an MMA fight, which was intended to take the Tyson Fury money from the Predator. But after months of negotiations, the former UFC heavyweight champion ultimately managed to secure a boxing bout against the renowned heavyweight champion. According to his manager, Ngannou is expected to make a base of $8 million from this fight before pay-per-view and sponsorships are added. This amount is about 13 times more than what Ngannou earned in his last title defense against Cyril Gane in the UFC. And having secured the bag, Ngannou can't help but smirk at the doubters, and once again, he'd love to prove them wrong by defeating the Mountain in Tyson Fury. Daniel Cormier apologizes to Francis Ngannou. But to be fair, even Ngannou's own friends also doubted him at some point during the negotiations. Many people, including UFC former two-division champion Daniel Cormier, questioned Ngannou's decision to part ways with the UFC and felt he may have taken too much to gamble. Cormier said he should just bite the bullet and return to the UFC. Now, the UFC Hall of Famer is congratulating the Predator on landing the Tyson Fury boxing match after all.
So, first off, I'm sorry, Francis. Yeah, I want to fumble your bag too, Francis. Boy. But RC, can I ask you a question? Do you have to be a little bit naive to go out in that world like that and know your value to the point that you will, even when it looked dark, to stand on your loyal and go, it'll happen for me? Francis had just enough of that, and now he finds himself, he's going to make more money than he ever could have imagined making in his entire life.
Yep.
Because guess what, RC? They're fighting in Saudi Arabia, which somehow literally just bought the PGA. Hey, bro, could you imagine how much money these dudes about to get if they bought golf? Like, how much money do you have to buy golf? When golf a year ago was mad because you started a league. Like, right. They actually bought golf. Francis and Tyson Fury are going to make so much money, it's crazy.
Throughout his life, from migrating to Cameroon and making it to the UFC, Ngannou has gambled on himself several times, and DC no doubt respects that. Jamahal Hill vacates his light heavyweight belt. Much like the last heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka, he announced an injury and subsequently gave up his UFC title. The division's current champion Jamahal Hill just informed fans on his own serious injury and the vacation of his title, repeating the same unfortunate history of the predecessor not even up to a year later. For Yuri Prochazka, it was a shoulder injury, but for Hill, it was a ruptured Achilles tendon. Hill's injury occurred during a basketball game between several MMA fighters before UFC 290 in Las Vegas. He gave the news on his channel.
Unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that to happen. I've unfortunately suffered an injury. I've ruptured my Achilles. Yeah. It's just one of those injuries. It's one of those things. Fuck, man. It's all right, man. It's just one of those things that happens, you know. It's a tough injury. It's one that will require surgery and will require time and rehab and things for me to be out for a while. So also with that, you know, I was given an opportunity, you know, I was given a blessing, you know, and that came at the misfortune of someone else, you know. Yuri Prochazka was the champion. He suffered an injury, you know, as these things happen, he gave up the title for man. He gave up the belt and allowed for others to not hold the division up, to keep the division moving forward, to keep entertaining, to make sure the people had a champion. And I'll do the same.
Hill was expected to defend his belt against Yuri Prochazka in his next outing, but that fight will have to be put on ice following the news. Well, despite the intensity between them, Yuri had some nice words for his rival. At Jamal H, man, I'm sorry. I was really looking forward to our fight. I appreciate your release of the title. Only a person who has experienced this situation can appreciate such a thing. Who is next? Winner of Blachowicz versus Pereira? Hashtag I am the champion. To which Sweet Dreams replied, thanks champ, we will have our dance for sure. Hold things down in the meantime, and can't wait to see you across the octagon from me. For Hill, however, what he had suffered is a challenging and serious injury that would require surgery, an extended period of rehabilitation, and an extensive time for recovery. Hey guys, if you'd love to continue enjoying our videos, kindly subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and comment.